Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today's Tuesday and it's February the 7th, 2022. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to extend to you a warm welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you so much for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently here on these YouTube streets, so you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want you to know, I sincerely thank you for your support. Feel free to like and to share this video, and don't forget to subscribe. We're stepping away from the Carolinas today, and our story comes out of Brooklyn, New York. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, "A family in mourning. We remember NYPD Officer Petlyn Job." I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. Now, this is not one of my typical videos, but it needed to be done. I want to begin by telling you a story. It was last Friday night when I heard the shocking news. I received a call from a family member who informed me that someone very close to us had been killed earlier that day. Now, that family member stayed on the phone with me for a few minutes, and we spoke about a number of things, to include how other family members were doing, where they were, and so forth. And then we also spoke about the need to respect protective orders when they were in place. You know, we had no knowledge of the situation, but we knew about protective orders and so forth. So we essentially touched on that, and that essentially was the gist of the conversation. And you know, I always say that Google listens to my conversation, because as soon as I hung up the phone and I returned to YouTube rather, it was all in front of me. I said, my gosh, there it is. I didn't even have to go looking for it. The news headline: retired NYPD officer and boyfriend found dead in a Brooklyn home. And it goes on to say retired NYPD officer Petlyn Job was found dead in her East Flatbush home along with her boyfriend. So I got out of the bed, just sat up, and did some reflecting. And shortly thereafter, I learned that the deaths were reported as a murder-suicide. And it was reported that the NYPD officer shot her companion and then took her own life. But the negative comments were just too much for me. And you know, I've come to realize that if you don't tell your story, someone else is going to do it for you. And you probably won't be happy with what you're seeing and what you're reading. So rather than responding, I decided to create a video of my own to speak on the person we all know, a short video to remember NYPD Officer Petlyn Job. And the beginning of this story takes us back to the country of Trinidad and Tobago, the country of her birth. Like many other families, the need for a better economic future prompted our parents and our grandparents to migrate to different countries around the world. And in this instance, the choice was United States. So Petlyn Job was born in Trinidad, but she lived the majority of her life in the United States. And after college, a desire for public service prompted her to pursue opportunities with the New York Police Department. And you know, her career choice was not really an isolated one. I sometimes think it was rather an expectation, because when I reflect back on all the choices that we've made, I often say it was a measure of loyalty to our adopted country that many of us embraced the opportunity to serve others, whether or not it was healthcare, whether or not it's the military, as three of my siblings did, whether or not it was in the fire service, the police department. It appears that the need to give back was somehow grounded in our DNA. So Petlyn Job's decision to become a member of the NYPD just seemed to fall in line with some unspoken expectations. So she joined the NYPD in 2001, and they became her newly adopted family. She served with distinction for the next 20 years. Petlyn was assigned to the 84th Precinct, where she embraced her assignments with pride, with excitement, and with much dedication. And she displayed immeasurable strength, not only served in her community, the people of New York, but by simultaneously raising her 3 children and documenting their milestones, which she shared frequently with family members across the globe. But for everything, there is a season. and the NYPD was never a permanent stop. So after 2 decades of service, she interrupted that busy NYPD life as she made the decision to retire. She had completed another assignment on her bucket list, and it was now time to move on to another phase of her life. And she was so pleased, so thrilled, so thankful to receive the send-off from her NYPD colleagues and her friends. A send-off that was fit for a queen. She was loved, and she could feel it all around her. In her farewell speech, she spoke about embracing the next chapter of her life. She was now ready to spend more time with her family, and as she described it, it was about time to begin living her best life. And after the NYPD and her retirement, that is exactly what she did. She set out on new adventures, traveling the world, experiencing new things, even reconnected with family and friends in Trinidad. And life was good. Yes, indeed, she was now living her best life, and she was happy. In fact, family members were wondering whether she would be returning to Trinidad for the upcoming 2023 carnival season, which was currently underway. So imagine the shock and the disbelief that accompanied the breaking news report of last Friday, which was February the 3rd. No, it could not be true. It had to be a mistake. It simply had to be a mistake. But through the screams and the confusion, reality finally did set in. It was all true. Our beloved Petlyn was no longer with us. And even then, we still had difficulty accepting the news report and what they were saying. And the bad news for us was about to get even worse. It did not take long for the various newspapers to print reports describing details about the incident, about the scene, and about what police say actually took place. It was reported that both individuals were found with gunshot wounds and that Petlyn had shot her boyfriend and then she had taken her own life. And this is probably a clipping from a news source that would probably it probably has the most profound effect on me so far. And to be honest, it's something that's probably would stay with many of us for the rest of our lives. It's not something you ever imagined seeing in your lifetime. One news source actually captured the moment the bodies were being removed from the home. And for me, I have read every news article, every comment, and I'll get back to the comment in a few minutes. And so now the search for answers continue. How did this happen? Why did this happen? So many questions and not enough answers. We learned she had previously scheduled a meeting with a friend that day. Or was there an engagement with a friend that day? And because she was a no-show, that prompted a friend to go to the house looking for her, and that's when the NYPD were called and the bodies were discovered. No one can actually say what happened in Petlyn's home that day because we weren't there. We can surely speculate that whatever happened was serious enough to create a specific action followed by a reaction which resulted in two people being deceased. But since the parties with the knowledge are both gone, questions will probably remain for the rest of our lives. So let me take just a few seconds to address the comment. I want everybody to know if there's an article out there, I found it, I read it. I read just about every article I could find, and I also read the comments. The majority of the comments were positive, and I'm sure they were appreciated on both sides. And while some shared words of condolences for both families, there were some that were downright disgusting and in very poor taste. And let me say one thing, both families are in need of prayers and support at this time. And unless you were inside that house on Beverly Road in Brooklyn on that Friday, February the 3rd, you are in no position to comment on what may have led up to this unfortunate incident. And if you can't say something positive, just shut up. But people should be mindful that the negative comments are going to be seen by family members, and this is not really how you show support. Now, I have not spoken on the second deceased person because I did not know him that well. I don't have a lot of information about him, so I have chosen not to speak on him. But to his family, let me acknowledge your loss, and I'm sending words of prayers and word of condolences as you are also grieving the loss of a loved one. And so we pause just briefly to celebrate a life well lived. The journey has been a memorable one. In fact, it's been one heck of a ride. From humble beginnings in that small town in Trinidad and Tobago to serving the people of New York as a police officer and to be able to complete 20 years of service and begin to enjoy your life as a retirement, that, my friend, is a worthwhile accomplishment. And Petlyn Job, I salute you. You've done well. You've made us proud. You know, many of us knows what it's meant to dedicate a life in service to others. But we may not always appreciate how the journey ends. The bumps along the road are not always spelled out, and each day we conquer challenges one by one, day by day. Petlyn Job, what a legacy you leave behind. We know it has not been an easy life, but you understood the assignment, and your mission is finally completed. So rest well, our princess, our favorite daughter. Rest well, and thank you for your service. Until we meet again. And that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks just like this one, that's a notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.